I don't know if anybody can look back to their senior year of college, their final year, and feel better about what they accomplished than what you did. I mean, it was just you and Romaine. Wow, it was amazing. I've never, in all the years that I've coached different teams, whatever, I've never experienced a run like that. Don't know if I ever will.
This is the Sean Miller Podcast, presented by Deer Park Roofing. Now, here's your hosts, Paul Fritschner and Adam Baum, with the head coach of the Xavier Musketeers, Sean Miller.
Welcome into another episode of the Sean Miller Podcast. We are joined by a very special guest today, Lionel Chalmers. Lionel, it's great to see you. Before we get started here, as always, we want to introduce the presenting sponsor of the Sean Miller Podcast, Deer Park Roofing, as well as the official payroll sponsor, Payroll Partners, and our friends at TGE Solar. But as I said, Lionel Chalmers, Xavier Hall of Famer, class of 2015. You're a second-round pick in the NBA draft. You scored over 1,500 points here at Xavier, 400 assists, over 400 assists, a illustrious career here in a Musketeer uniform. But maybe most importantly, or what most Xavier fans that are listening to this, remember you for the point guard of that 2004 team that made the run, that went 4 games in 4 days, went to the NCAA tournament, and went to the Elite Eight. Lionel, it is great to have you on here on the Sean Miller Podcast. How are you, and how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. So, I look forward to the questions or whatever, guys, you have for me today.
Sean, what's it like to be reunited here a little bit? I know it's virtual, but to kind of be able to check in here after all these years.
I mean, it's really what I think all of us that are in coaching, eventually come to, where you learn that the most important thing is just the players that you've coached. In Lionel's case, I never was Lionel's head coach. I was an assistant coach, and that's a different role than being a head coach. But him and I grew close in the 2 years that we were together at Xavier. And me being a former point guard, I was much younger then. And then Lionel being an aspiring one, it was a lot of fun to watch him go from where he once was, a very talented player, to becoming an NBA pick and an NBA player. And his last year as a college point guard, I will tell you, there aren't many guys that can look back on their career and look at their final year of being more special than Lionel. I mean, we've talked about it on this podcast before, but Adam and Paul, I mean, we were in Lionel's. Well, first of all, let's go back. When Lionel was a junior, we had David West, and everybody knows David. He became National Player of the Year, and we had an amazing team. Looking back on it, the big three for us, was Lionel, Romaine Sato, and David West. And if you look at where all three of these guys have gone in life, you kind of think back of how special that would have been to have all three of them on the same team. And Lionel, I believe it was New Year's Eve, Creighton. I know Dana Altman, the coach of Creighton at the time, talks about this game even with me today. Kyle Korver was in the game. It was an incredible game, but you broke your foot. Yes. You remember that?
Yes.
So we're not talking about your senior year yet. We would have been talking about the year prior to your last year with David West, because there was a chance, and our goal was to get to the Final Four, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So let's go back to that night on what you remember. It's been a while. I'll tell you, and then I'll tell you what I remember.
Well, looking back at the situation and the motivation that I had for the summer going into my senior year, that was the point right there. It was something that I couldn't control, but at the same time, I felt disappointed, not only in myself, but in my teammates. I felt like I was letting my teammates down because I wasn't there for them. So it was a dark time for me at that moment. It was New Year's Eve. I'll never forget it. But it was also the inspiration that led me to have such a good senior year. So when I look back at it, I'm thankful for that moment, because it actually helped turn things around for me and help me realize, how special of an opportunity I had, and it helped me take full advantage of it.
I don't know how you are as a coach today, but one of the things that I think we all lean on when we become coaches is the experience you had as a player. And I'm sure if it's happened once, it's probably happened 20, potentially more times when you're talking to today's player and you use your own story as an example, right? Of like when it seems the days seem to be the darkest with no hope, you recognize that in fact there is hope, and that in some ways it becomes a silver lining, that adversity and something that you love being taken away from you, like this game and like the dreams of a season, etc. And then coming back out on the other side, it makes you better. And then you sometimes can reach a height that you otherwise would never have reached if you didn't go through that setback. I know for myself, and if you remember, you probably don't at this point, but I use myself as an example because you go down, you lose it. It's a weird time for an athlete when you feel like everything's been taken from you.
Absolutely. You said it.
You came back though that year.
Yeah, I came back that year, and I would say honestly, I reached probably about 75-80% max.
Yeah.
And I tried, and I gave it all I could, but it just wasn't the same, and it took more time than I needed, more time than I took. I believe Dr. Berger did it, and he told me that I was one of the fastest recoveries with a screw in my foot. But I didn't get to 100% that year, and if I did, that probably would have been a different story.
No question, no doubt. But me going from that, now we're in the spring, summer, going into your senior year, and I was with you, and I think you were incredibly motivated, like you mentioned, to finish your Xavier career and go on and give this thing a shot, see if you could become an NBA player. And we were losing David. It was clearly going to be a change from him and you guys to just really you and Romaine. And I just, when you think back to that segue of the injury, doing the best you can. I think we were a 3 seed that year, Adam and Paul, and we ended up losing to Maryland in David's senior year in the second round of the NCAA tournament. We still had a great season, but to think we lost Lionel for the lion's share of it. And like he said, even when he returned, he wasn't nearly the player that he once was. That ended, and now here we are in that segue, that off season.
Yeah, and just to go into the beginning of the first year, I think because of the change of hands where Dave D. West went to the league, there was a little push and pull on the direction that we were going to go in. Not from a coaching standpoint, but more from the players. Like we had to figure out our identity. We had to know who was going to lead and how we were going to do it. So I think that first half of that season, we were kind of trying to figure that out. And you probably can speak more from it from a coaching standpoint. But as a player, like I felt like we had something. We just didn't know how to lay it out properly as players. And things kind of lined up as we hit adversity. We hit a few spots of adversity, and things started to fall in place after that. George Washington game, for example, that was a big one. So, and the UC game was another big one that helped, propel us. So there was a few moments in that season where we, our backs was against the wall and we had to respond, and we did.
Well, what was it like playing for Sean when he was just an assistant? Because as Sean mentioned, there's a difference between being an assistant coach and being a head coach. And a lot of people only know him as the head guy, and I've only seen him ever coach as the head coach. But what was the version of Sean Miller like as an assistant?
Honestly, when you talk about coaches, you think about either like they played or they have knowledge of the game from studying or from doing the research on it. Or Sean had both, in my opinion. He was able to help me in a cerebral way. As a point guard, he would send me lists. I think I still have some of the lists that you send me of the top 10 things to do as a point guard. But he was also a player and he was also a point guard. So he was able to give me information that if you didn't play, you wouldn't be able to understand. And at the same time, he also gave me information as a coach in a cerebral form to help me understand, to lead as well. So like I was fortunate enough to have him and him trusting me and believing me through my, journey to get better. He trusted in me, he believed in me, and he fought for me. And because of that, I was willing to do whatever it took for him because he understood where I was coming from, and he was patient with me, and he understood what I needed. And like we were on the same page when it came to that. So work ethic was never a problem for me, but for him to be able to pinpoint those things and help me see it in the way that I needed to see it at the time was very valuable. And I'm thankful to this day for it.
Lionel, back then, if you think about it, a point guard was judged differently than they are today. You were actually a version of today's guard. You really are, because today's guard, you're expected to do everything. And in particular, if you're limited as a scorer and you're just a pass first facilitator, I don't want to say you're worthless, but it's just the game has changed so much. They're so dependent on all 5 players being able to score the ball and shoot. And really, that's how your game was wired. But back then, sometimes it's, well, Lionel's a 2 guard or Lionel shoots a lot. So how can we give him the ball? But in fact, and I think anyone that was on that team or in our locker room, and Coach Mata as well, would say what really changed our team in that year, because, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. We were 10-9 at the UC game. Is that right? That's a lot of games.
Yeah.
Is that right? 10-9?
Yeah, in 2004, 10-9.
Yeah. So you're 10-9. You're at game 20. That's a lot of basketball behind you. It's very difficult at that point to just flip the switch and become great. And quite frankly, that's what happened. But the reason it happened is we just said, you know what? Let's just give Lionel the ball. Let's allow him to create his own, and through that, he'll create others. And let's just kind of go at this a different way instead of trying to say you either have the ball or you don't. Let's let him be who he is. And even to this day, I think back to that lesson because, look, we went from 10-9, and Lionel hit a step back, tough 2 to win the game, the crosstown shootout. We can talk about that in a second. But that win, we went from 10-9, now 11-9, and we became unstoppable. We could have won the national championship, certainly could have been in the Final Four. What we went on to do from that game forward, that's why I said what I said at the onset here of this podcast. I don't know if anybody can look back to their senior year of college, their final year, and feel better about what they accomplished than what you did. It was just you and Romaine. Wow. It was amazing. I've never, in all the years that I've coached different teams, whatever, I've never experienced a run like that. Don't know if I ever will.
I appreciate that. Well, I thank you for, being there for me and helping me through the process and trusting me. That was great. Yeah. I appreciate you. For sure.
Lionel, when you look back, Lionel, at that season and going into that Cincinnati game, you hit the shot, you win by 2, and then, the rest of the way you only lose to Duquesne. Before you lose to Duke, that's the only loss you have separating you was that loss to Duquesne. So right. What was it like in the locker room? We had Justin Dolman on this podcast about a couple months ago, and he was talking about what the locker room was like. What was the locker room like from your perspective? Did you guys, call a meeting? What was that like going into the run? Because I think a lot of Xavier fans obviously hold that as a very special moment.
Yeah, there was a couple moments that led to it. There was a George Washington moment where, we weren't playing up to par, and we
got blown out, right? At George Washington, you got blown out. Yeah.
At halftime, I went crazy. I was throwing stuff.
I remember that.
I was the locker and stuff. And it was just more of like an awareness of like, look, we're capable of doing this. Let's maximize our capabilities. I just felt like we weren't maximizing our capabilities at that point. And I think we lost the next game after that. But from that point on, I think we kind of locked in and we allowed each other to be who we were, and we helped each other, and it was team oriented, and like we had nothing but like love and respect for each other, and we just pushed each other, and we were together, and we just formed together, and after that it was hard to beat us.
We went to, so you might not even remember all these details, Lionel, but so like you said, we felt like we had to win out, and even if we won out, we had dug ourselves such a deep hole that we were not going to get an at-large bid. Think about that.
That's right.
And then not only that, right when you have a glimmer of hope, we're like, wow, maybe we will in fact get an at-large bid because we've won like 9 in a row, 10 in a row, whatever in a row we won. Paul mentioned it, but Duquesne, they not only beat us and they were not good, they beat us at home. So it's like, oh my God, how does this happen? But then we bounced back. And, at the end of the day, whatever it was, I think winning 11 of 12 or 13 of 14 or something like that. Remember, our gift was the Atlantic 10 tournament was played at UD Arena, right?
Yes.
And Dayton was very good. So you look at that and say, we're going to play in the Atlantic 10 tournament at UD Arena. And we might even have to get to Dayton on their home court to win the Atlantic 10 regular season or the tournament. But also we have St. Joe's and Jameer Nelson that were a perfect 30-0, Delonte West. They were an overall 1 seed. They did not lose a single game in the regular season. So we have them there. We have other teams that are good, but we also have Dayton that we're going to have to beat on their home court to win the Atlantic 10 tournament. And I don't know if you recall, but first game, I believe we played St. Bonaventure. We won it. And then in the second game, we had to play St. Joe's. And if you think about it, our season could have ended right there. Absolutely. But, man, we not only beat them, but I felt like we were up by about 30.
Yeah, we destroyed them. Yeah, we destroyed them for sure.
That was a surreal moment. You have the 1 seed, in the Atlantic 10 tournament, and you have them down by 20, 25, maybe even more. But so we won, and then obviously had to play a very good George Washington team, and we won again. And then finally, then this is the next narrative. So you have to win the Atlantic 10 tournament at Dayton on their home court. You have the overall number 1 seed, a perfect 30-0 that you have to beat. And then you actually have to win 4 games in 4 days. And at that point, no team had ever done that.
Right.
Ever. I mean, to win 4 games in 4 days. A few have done it since. NC State, I think, this year had won 5 games in 5 days. But, that's very difficult to do. But the 4th game in 4 days is Dayton. So we're playing them. And a lot of our fans, because we're in the Big East now, they obviously know the crosstown shootout. But we have not played Dayton in a long time. I don't know how you feel, but the rivalry between Xavier and Dayton, in my mind, was almost on par with UC.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Always a fight.
Yeah. Do you remember that game at all? The
I do.
championship game? What do you remember?
I remember Sato playing very well.
Mm.
I remember us recognizing what we were doing and how good we were.
Yeah.
And I recognized that the fact that we owed Dayton. And
Yeah.
I remember like the amount of focus the whole team had.
Yeah.
And like there was no way we were losing the game. Like going into the start of the game, just looking at everyone and even the coaching staff, like the focus and the detail, the attention and the way we were feeling and the heights that we were, like the level of where we thought we were at that point. Like I knew we weren't going to lose that game. That's what I remember. That's what I remember.
And I will tell you that, when I think of the greatest moments that I've been a part of in sports, basketball, playing, assistant coach, head coach, that ranks really, at almost the top, because the story that we're telling, it sounds like a movie, but it just doesn't happen. You're not 10-9, you're not, hit a step back against UC to win the crosstown shootout. And then all of a sudden you put this cape on and become invincible, right? Other than Duquesne at home. And quite frankly, that's what happened. But I remember feeling on the bus ride back from Dayton, like, wow, we're in the tournament. And we just beat St. Joe's, who was a perfect 30-0, and that wasn't close. We just beat Dayton on their home court in front of basically their entire 14,000 people that were going crazy.
Yes.
We won 4 games in 4 days. No one has ever done it before. That, damn, we might win this whole thing. Like we might not be beatable. That's how I felt as a coach, and I know you felt that way.
Absolutely.
And and then March Madness begins, and man, I'm going to tell you, like, you start looking at where we were, and then we started our run.
That's it. That's right. That's right. And like just looking back at the situation, just from the start of the NCAA tournament, I really never had the opportunity to enjoy it while we were playing, because I was focused, we were locked in, we were making sure, we understood what we needed to do. We were listening to scouting, we were detailed, we were focused, we were locked in. So I never really looked at what we were doing, what we were accomplishing at that moment. And looking back at it, like, it was really special. It was pretty special. And to be honest with you, we should have got past Duke, but that's another story.
That was crazy. Look, we went to Orlando. That was our site. We played Louisville. And look, I think we were a 10 seed. So they were a 7 seed. Francisco Garcia, Coutinho was there getting Louisville back up and running. And he doesn't lose much in the early rounds of the NCAA tournament. But I think we found ourselves in a big deficit. And just like that became our MO. And that was the other thing about that run. We weren't always perfect. There were times when we would dig ourselves a deep hole and we would make this crazy comeback. And there was just all different forms of winning that we experienced. But that was one where we dug ourselves a hole in round one. And a lot of people were saying, when you win 4 games in 4 days and we didn't have a deep bench, would you have any legs left? But we went right into the tournament and we had a comeback win. We beat Louisville. And then we had Mississippi State. It was great. They were a 2 seed.
Yeah, they were good.
And we beat them. And I think we beat them almost from start to finish. And now here we are. We're going to the Sweet 16. So again, just as we talk this out, we're the team that wins 4 games in 4 days with some very strong circumstances against us at UD Arena. And then we're in the NCAA tournament. And now we beat a 7 seed and a 2 seed. And here we are. We now take the 2 seeds place, and now we're in the Sweet 16 in Atlanta where we're playing in the Dome. And, I think Texas was next up.
Yes.
And ironically, 2 years ago, we played Texas in the Sweet 16 again, and we weren't as successful. But again, great game as I remember it. Could have gone either way. Might have even gone overtime. Do you guys know if that was overtime?
It didn't go to overtime, but it ended up being, I think it got extended on free throws at the end. You guys won by 8.
Okay. But yeah, you win it. And now you're in the regional final. You're in the Elite 8, the game to go to the Final Four. And, it was only fitting that we had Duke.
Right.
And if you remember their squad, though, Duke, that was a great team.
Yeah, J.J. Redick, Luau Deng,
Sheldon Williams.
Sheldon Williams. Yeah, they had a really good team.
They had a really, really good team. Yeah, Coach K and look, I've been in, Lionel. I don't know if you know this. That was the first Elite 8 that I was in. Obviously, I was an assistant coach, and then I've gone back 4 more times. So. And as you know, like, damn, coach, that's 5. You didn't win one of them, and I didn't. But that one and 2 others remind me of each other, because not only could we have won, but we were really in a position to win. I still have, coming back under media timeout, under that 4-minute media timeout. It was a low-scoring game. I think we were up to 53-51, and maybe we even had the ball, but Anthony Miles fouled out. That was one of those like crazy moments that we didn't get him out of the game. Yeah, we didn't get him out of the game, and probably should have. But at the end, he fouled on a tough call, and I think J.J. Redick hit a great shot. But they went on to win it, and then man, we were just. I remember after the game, in one hand I was crushed because we were so close to being in the Final Four, and on another hand, it was like surreal that we're here. I can't believe this is the same team that was at George Washington getting beat by 20 and 10-9 in the crosstown shootout.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a heck of a run. Absolutely,
really was.
Lionel, when you look back on that game against Duke and what you did that whole season, how do you now, being older, how do you appreciate that, and everything that you did? Because you say you didn't appreciate it in the moment. But what do you think back on? What are your fondest memories of that, just as a whole, not one game, but just as a whole?
Well, I think the inspiration behind the whole thing is like together we can accomplish things, right? If we're all allowed to be our true selves and we do it together, then there's no telling what could be accomplished. So I think the run was a testimony of that. Like we all accepted each other, we all got together, we figured out the best plan of action, and we went with that and we worked it out as we went through the journey. And there was never any doubts, there was never any going back and forth as far as like not trusting people or like, not wanting someone to be a part of something. It was all together, and ups and downs, miss or makes, we supported each other. We were there for each other, and we had an idea of winning, and we went for it. And so just the understanding that if we work together and we have the same goals in mind, there's no telling what you can accomplish.
And it's 20 years ago, Lionel, and when you listen to you and I kind of go back down memory lane, it's so powerful to think about like how special it is, right? College basketball, the NCAA tournament, and you being in the NBA as both a player and a coach, you have one of those rare perspectives of looking at college basketball through the lens of being in the NBA. It's different, isn't it? One of the things that always sticks out for me in every NCAA tournament that I'm in, and it doesn't happen always in the first game or first rounds. Sometimes it does, but it always happens in the Sweet 16, and that is the police escort. When you're going from your hotel to practice, you're going from, point A to point B, or after a big win, you're going from the arena back to the hotel, and you look and you have these motorcycles leading you and these highways are being shut down. That's when you really understand that there's a lot at stake in this NCAA tournament we're in.
That's right. That's right. Those are the moments that you hope for, though. Those are the moments you work for. Those are the moments that you dream about. So, yeah, absolutely.
The Sean Miller Podcast is proud to partner with Deer Park Roofing, a company that's provided elite service for homes and businesses since 1996 and leads the industry in professionalism, quality, and responsiveness. Whether your needs are residential or commercial, like the outstanding work on the Cintas Center, the home of Xavier basketball, Deer Park can handle any job and ensure it's done right. Deer Park's motto is protect what's important, and what's important to you is important to Deer Park Roofing. Visit deerparkroofing.com. The Sean Miller Podcast is proud to partner with Xavier University's Williams College of Business, ranked the #1 online MBA in Ohio once again, and with nationally recognized concentrations in marketing, business analytics, entrepreneurship, and finance. The Xavier MBA advances your career. Classes are offered in part-time, full-time, online, and executive formats. Xavier alums receive a 25% tuition scholarship. Join Greater Cincinnati's largest MBA alumni network. Find out more at xavier.edu/MBA.
So, Lionel, one thing that I would love for you to do, because no doubt people have lost track of, okay, you leave Xavier, you graduate like you all do, and you have this incredible final year going to run. It's like not only did you get drafted in the NBA, but your teammate Romain Sato did. So, think about this. It shows you that, with team success comes the individual accolades, but it also speaks to both of your individual talent. Of all the different players that I've had the chance to coach, just who you two guys were in that last year, it just like you were NBA players, but, both of you getting picked and off the same team from the Atlantic 10 Xavier, I think is remarkable. And then just share with us just your journey to catch us up on you left and where you went and what you did.
Okay, so I was drafted second round. I went 33 to the Clippers. Sean Livingston and I were in that draft class. And I had a pretty good up and down year. The situation was a little sticky because they were in the mode of making the playoffs and needing a point guard. Sean Livingston and I were kind of like one hole. So he was like the bigger guard that was a facilitator, and I was like the smaller guard that could score. So I could guard the one on defense, and he can guard the two on defense, and then we can interchange offensively. Well, he was not only hurt once, but he was hurt 3 times during that year.
Yeah.
So that kind of threw my situation to the left a little bit, which is part of the game. So I guess they wanted to go in a different direction. So they traded myself and Marco Yarrick to Minnesota for Sam Cassell. And when I went to Minnesota, I ended up playing there, got hurt, high ankle sprain, out 6 months. So I ended up going overseas. And I went overseas. Once I recovered, I went overseas. I played well over there. I ended up making pretty good money and playing on really good teams. So I just ended up staying there, and I played for 10 more years. I came back. After my second year, I was in Spain. We went to the Final Four of the EuroLeague. We ended up in third. We lost. But I came back, and I signed with Atlanta Hawks. And the preseason, the first game before we went on the road for the preseason game, I get a steal fast break, I go to lay it up, and I fall. High ankle sprain again. I'm out again. So that was like another 4 months. So after that, I went back overseas. I ended up having a 10-year career overseas. I played in Russia, Spain, Italy, France, Bulgaria. I won 5 championships over that span. And then once I retired, I retired in Orlando. So I'm kind of looking.
Did you ever play against Romain when both of you were overseas?
Yes, absolutely. We were in Italy, and we played against each other a few times in Italy.
Wow. Yeah. And then Romain, obviously, his international career speaks for itself as well. Just became one of the greats over there. But yeah, no, you two guys were amazing, just high level players on the same team. Really. But yeah, I mean, I don't think people completely understand, Lionel, how difficult it is to play in the EuroLeague. When you think of overseas, I think a lot of people over here in the United States think, well, it's all one. No, there's a big difference. You're actually in the EuroLeague. The coaching, the crowds, the level of play is at a very, very high level. And, the game is much more of movement than the NBA at times, But, to play at that level and do it for a 10-year period of time is not an easy task at all.
Yeah. I wanted to continue to play, but my daughter was getting older, and she wanted to kind of have some more stability because we were changing cities every 2 years or every other year. So I retired at 15, and I allowed her to go and create, some consistency by going to the same school. So I did that. And I sat out for about a year, and then I was starting to look to get into coaching because I didn't think I was going to be a coach until my last 3 or 4 years. My father told me, "You're going to be a coach. You should be a coach. You should be a coach." And I was playing at that time, so I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not. There's no way. So my last 3 or 4 years, I started to help the younger guys. They started to turn to me. They started to ask me questions, and then it just became natural, and I really enjoyed it. So once I retired, I said, I think I'm going to be a coach. So that's when I started to get into looking at opportunities to coach. I started out first at EA Sports Orlando. So 2017, the NBA Live game is with James Harden on the cover. I was one of the main contributors to doing the analysis of the game. So like, how they get the points, like you're 96,
right?
Or, so I was one of the few guys who was doing the marking of all of the stats. So basically I was like a scout. I would look at all the stats, and I would compile them all up, and I would give you your percentage based on that. And it was like a weekly thing. So on the 2017 is also the first year that they did the WNBA. So I did WNBA and I did the NBA Live. So it was a great opportunity for me because they were here in the station in Orlando, but it also gave me an understanding of like the scouting. So like I'm looking at all the stats of each player in the NBA. So at that point I was like a genius scout at that point because I'm looking at everyone and I can see every stat. Oh, he's 35% off the dribble, but he's 40% standstill. Like we were able to like, there's about 96 questions that you go through to get the percentage. So long story short, I did that for about 5 or 6 months, and that's when I got a call to start coaching.
Yeah.
And I had to make a decision on whether I wanted to do college or MBA.
Yeah.
And Frank Vogel called me. I was headed to do college, and Frank Vogel called me and gave me an opportunity here in Orlando. And this is going to my 8th year now.
Yeah. 8th year. And you've been with just one team as well.
Yes, I've been with Orlando Magic the whole time. This is my 3rd coach.
Yeah.
So, but I've been in Orlando since 17.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It really is, man. I'm happy for you, proud of you. And then, look, the last part of it is make sure you bring everybody up to speed on your family as well.
Yeah, my family's doing well. Actually, London, my oldest daughter, she's 19 now. She's a sophomore at Xavier.
Yeah.
And
I never see her. I look at that as a good sign because I never see her. She must be doing well. Is she enjoying it?
Yeah, she's quiet. She's low key. She's not gonna make too much noise, but she's enjoying herself. She's home for the summer now. She needs to take some more summer classes, but she's home for the summer now. So yeah, she's enjoying herself. She enjoys it. She wanted a little cooler weather, so I told her Xavier's perfect.
She definitely accomplished that. Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, you get used to Florida. It's going to be a little bit different for her as a student.
Absolutely. And then my daughter Juliana, she's playing. She's a sophomore. She started her freshman year. She started on varsity basketball. So she's going to be a 15-year-old junior. Yeah. So she's a little bit ahead, but she's balling and she's a good kid. And then my son Leo's 11. He loves basketball. He loves soccer as well. So he'll be coming up soon too.
Nice, good. Well, we got to make him a musketeer, man. This will be the Big East version of Xavier. Get enough performers out there.
Trust me, he's got all the X gear.
Let me tell you guys this: no parent that I have ever dealt with in the 31 years that I've been a college coach, encompassing every team I've been on, loves gear more than Lionel's dad. He loves it. I mean, he loves gear. He will hit me all the time, and I love sending it to him because I know he's wearing it. But I'd love to see his closet. I really would, because I know I'm not the only one he's asking. I mean, he probably hasn't bought clothes in 25 years based on his love of gear, especially.
He's loyal. He's really loyal. Like he wears Xavier. He wears he'll wear the Clippers, and he'll wear Orlando. And the Knicks. Other than that, he's wearing it. So he's loyal. He's loyal.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Lionel, I
appreciate you being on and a lot, man. It's great catching up. We got to get you back up here, and like I said, compare notes, and love to really get in the trenches with you on the different things that you're working player development wise in today's NBA, and making sure that we have all those things incorporated. We got to do it. All right.
Absolutely. We'd love to.
He looks like he can still get a bucket for you, Coach.
No, I saw him when London came and made a visit here, and Lionel, his wife, and his kids were up here, and he was in great shape. But it's one thing about the NBA life, man. Those guys, they got some free time. They don't have to recruit, so they can get on that treadmill all day.
Lionel, we appreciate you joining us today, and thanks as always to all of our sponsors, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening, everybody, to another episode of the Sean Miller Podcast.
This has been the Sean Miller Podcast, presented by Deer Park Roofing, with your hosts, Paul Fritschner and Adam Baum. Join us again soon for another episode with the head coach of the Xavier Musketeers, Sean Miller.
The Sean Miller Podcast is proud to partner with Payroll Partners, where you're not just a number. That means providing a best-in-class HR and payroll experience that was built on award-winning technology and live support customer service with a dedicated payroll specialist who's just a phone call away. You shouldn't have to choose between technology and customer service. At Payroll Partners, you get both. Payroll Partners is locally owned and operated by a proud Xavier alum. Visit payrollpartners.net. That's payrollpartners.net.
I'm from Boston, Massachusetts.
Milano, Italy.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
St. Louis, Missouri.
Abuja, Nigeria.
And I chose
Xavier University
for its education,
more opportunities,
for passion, because it felt like home.
The community,
campus life,
D1 basketball.
because I love Cincinnati.
I came here
to be a Musketeer.
I am.
And we are the faces of Xavier.